Hello everyone, welcome to GTC classes English. So today we are going to start our new topic, that is the pharmaceutical suspensions. Among this topic we are going to discuss some of the important MCQs that are asked from this topic, and we'll be understanding few concepts regarding it, and there will be few topics that are directly asked in your exams. I will be mentioning the topics and the important concepts that can be asked directly in your exams. I hope you will enjoy this lecture. So let's start with the basics of our topic, that what actually does the pharmaceutical suspension mean, what are the basics, what is the basic need of our pharmaceutical suspension. So let's just dig into the topic, and I'll be just explaining you a bit of things, and I'll be writing the things here also. So basically, what exactly is a suspension means? From the start we have seen that suspensions are nothing but these are the biphasic systems. Suspensions are the biphasic heterogeneous, to be more precise, biphasic heterogeneous systems which consist of a dispersed phase and a dispersion medium, which consist of a dispersed phase and a dispersion medium. Okay students, so this dispersed phase is also known as an internal phase, while this dispersion medium is also referred to as external phase. So by the definition also it is very clear that a pharmaceutical suspension is a coarse dispersion in which an internal phase is dispersed uniformly throughout the external phase, which is your dispersion medium. Okay students, right? So the particle size, the range size carrying in the suspension is 0.5 to 5 microns, having the therapeutically active ingredient in our dispersed phase, which is uniformly maintained throughout the suspending vehicle with the aid of single or the combination of the suspending agents into your external phase, that is your dispersion medium. Okay students, so by far we have seen that just like the colloids, these also contain a dispersed phase which is uniformly distributed among the dispersion medium. So now what is the utility of your suspension? Why these are required? We have so many types of systems, then what is the actual utility of suspensions? Now other than this, these basics, we will also be seeing various theoretical concepts or the considerations that are to be taken care of while understanding the concept of suspensions, or while preparing a suspension also. So there are few theoretical considerations also that we are going to talk about, but firstly we'll see what is the actual utility of suspension, where it is required. So suspensions are chosen as a pharmaceutical dosage form majorly for your insoluble drugs. All right, so this is a system that is actually chosen for your insoluble drugs. Other than this, wherever it is required to mask the bitter taste or make the formulation a bit palatable, you can actually formulate into a suspension. So second can be basically to mask the unpleasant or the bitter taste of the active ingredient. Now by formulating into a suspension, we can make it more palatable. Okay, so these while giving as a suspension. Other than that I have to write this. Other than that, the dissolution of drug particles is in a suspension. The dissolution of drug particles is in a suspension. The dissolution of drug particles in a suspension is much more higher. Why? Because of the effective surface area. So another added advantage of the pharmaceutical suspensions. Also, the drug in the suspension actually exhibits higher bioavailability. The drug in the suspension exhibits higher bioavailability than any other dosage forms. Okay, students. Now, firstly, we have seen that in suspension, the advantage is that you can use the insoluble drugs to formulate a suspension. You can mask the unpleasant or bitter taste by formulating into suspension. The dissolution expected is much higher because of the effective surface area, so as the bioavailability is also higher in case of suspensions. Other than this, suppose you have a drug that is higher susceptible to the hydrolysis, or the stability issues are there, they can be improved by formulating into the suspensions also. Other than that, to achieve a better or controlled, or you can say sustained release, you can formulate your ingredient into a suspension. Okay, students, for prolonged release, for sustained or betterly stating controlled release, you can formulate it into your suspension, so that there is a prolonged systemic effect of your therapeutic or your pharmaceutical agent, your active ingredient. So these are some basic utilities of your suspension and the advantages you can follow for formulating any drug as a suspension. So yes, whatever I have mentioned is also written here. What are the reasons of formulating into a pharmaceutical suspension is that whenever your drug is insoluble in the delivery vehicle, you can use suspensions there for sure, right? Also, the bitter taste of the drug can be masked, the drug stability can be increased, or the controlled or sustained release can be achieved. However, because of the size, while formulating or while preparing the formulation, which is your suspension, actually it is very difficult to control the particle size. It is very difficult to maintain the stability. Here, although it has been written that the drug stability is improved, but maintaining the formulation stability is very difficult in case of these suspensions because of the tendency to basically aggregate and precipitate out. It is slightly difficult, so you should have a good formulation hand if you are going to prepare suspensions, emulsions, or any liposomal particle, also nanoparticles. Because of the chance of aggregation, precipitation, drug leakage, these things are very different from a practical point of view. But yes, the drug stability can be enhanced, so the controlled and sustained or prolonged release can be achieved by formulating it into a suspension. Other than that, very much other advantages have been listed here, including the improvement of the chemical stability of the certain drugs, the higher rate of bioavailability by far. I think you all should know that how much is the drug available in your systemic availability of the drug, actual systemic availability of the drug. So the drug in the suspension exhibits a higher rate of bioavailability as compared to the other dosage forms. Generally, solutions are even more bioavailable, but comparative to the tablets, the capsules, the suspensions are more highly exhibit a higher rate of bioavailability. They can mask the unpleasant or bitter taste of the drug. Chloramphenicol is a standard example. Now, the chloramphenicol can be formulated as a suspension to mask its characteristic bitter taste or unpleasant taste. Now, before other further things that basically you just need to go from your exam point of view. You just need to go through this topic, that how your suspensions can be classified, but the actual systems of classifications are really different. From your exam point of view, I'll let you know these are some generalized concepts that you should know as per the basis on the general class, in basis on the proportion of solid particles, or basis on their electrokinetic nature, or you can say basis on your size of the solid particles. So based on the general classes, they are classified as the oral or the parenteral or the externally applied suspensions. Based on the proportions, that can be considered into the dilute or the concentrated suspensions, as the name suggests. Based on the electrokinetic nature of the solid particles, these can be termed as your flocculated or deflocculated suspensions. Although all these classes are really important, but based on your GPAT exam, most of the questions are asked from the flocculated and the deflocculated suspensions, which we will be discussing now. So based on the size of the colloidal particles, they can be termed into the coarse, the colloidal, or the nano suspensions. So these are some of the important classification for your suspension systems. Now, as I've mentioned, the major important class that you need to focus is the flocculated suspension or the deflocculated one. So before going into that, we will see that what is the meaning of this flocculation, what are the flocculating agents, what are the deflocculating agents. I'll be explaining a little bit about these basics of these, then we will move on to the this important class of the suspension. Okay students, so now moving on to the some basic terminologies that you need to know before getting into the types is, what is this flocculating agent? What is the basic meaning of this flocculating agents? So now you should know that flocculating agents, as the name suggests, that yes, there are some of the floccules, flocks, which means aggregates. So the flocculating agents are actually going to promote this flocculation, the flock formation, the aggregate formation of the suspended particles, which are now tend to form these aggregates. So flocculating agents are what? These are the agents which tend to promote your flocculation by causing the suspended particles, to aggregate, basically forming a flock. So the agents which break these flocks or prevent this flocculation will be termed as a deflocculating agents. So it is very understood from the name itself that the flocculating agents are going to promote your flocculation, the flock formation, the aggregation, but the deflocculating agents are going to prevent the flocculation. Okay students, so now let's see what is this flocculation and what is this deflocculation means. Yes, so flocculation, you can see in the photographs, the pictures that have been made on the side, that the flocculated suspensions have these loose aggregates in them, while in case of deflocculating suspension, the particles are existing as the individual entities. They are not forming any flock, they are separate, while there are a loose formation of loose aggregates in your flocculated suspensions. So as the name suggested, I have shown that particles are going to form loose aggregates and form a network like structure in case of the flocculated suspension. while in case of non-flocculated suspensions, the particles are going to exist as separate entities. The rate of sedimentation, that is why, will be very slow. But in case of the flocculated ones, the rate of sedimentation will be high. Now the table that you see right here, from this table only a lot of questions have already been asked in your exam, and there are high chances that yes, your question will be further asked from this topic. So kindly take a note of this tabular form right here that you see. It is very mark it 5 star, 10 star from this topic only from this topic right here that you see, this table right here that you see is the important topic from where your questions can be asked. Okay students, so particles tend to form loose aggregates in the flocculated ones. They are weakly bonded, but they have a higher rate of sedimentation. Now the sediment is rapidly formed, but it does not form any hard cake. So from the name itself we can see there is no hard cake formation. So upon shaking they can be easily redispersed, but obviously the formation of flocks will cause its organoleptic properties to slightly dwindle a bit, because they will not look as good as your non-flocculated ones. So they are not pleasing in appearance, but floccules tend to stick on the side of the bottle and a clear supernatant is formed. However, you can see the flocculated suspensions are deflocculated suspensions or non-flocculated suspensions. The particles exist as separate entities because the repulsion among the particles is super high. The sedimentation is going to be low as compared to the flocculated ones. The sediment will be slowly formed, while in the flocculated ones that sedimentation was rapidly formed. Now the sediment was loosely packed and there was no hard cake formation in the flocculated ones, but in case of non-flocculated ones the particles were closely packed, so there was a hard cake formation which was difficult to redisperse as compared to the flocculated ones, whereas it was easier to redisperse, but the suspension was not pleasant in appearance. While in case of the non-flocculated ones you can see the suspension is pleasing in appearance and there is a cloudy supernatant. So these are generalized topic that you should know about it. I am repeating it again. The questions have been asked a lot of time. You will see that in practice MCQs, you will see that in last year papers, in upcoming papers, in mock papers, in marathon your MCQ classes also. This is a very popular topic from your exam point of view. Okay students, so next that we are going to see are other major considerations apart from your basic definitions, how the sedimentation occurs, what are the things that govern the sedimentation, how this particle size is going to take into the consideration while forming a suspension. So I am going to explain you all a little about what are the important considerations, major considerations while formulating a suspension. The first consideration that you should know is the particle size. Is the particle size. Now the particle size has a real importance while we are talking about these heterogeneous biphasic systems, including the suspensions, the colloids, the emulsions. The particle size is very difficult to achieve and difficult to control. Mind this thing. Now the particle size and the size distributions, I have mentioned the particle size and the size distributions. Both of these are going to impact a lot of things while studying the biophysics system. What are these things that it can impact. Firstly is your product appearance. As you have seen, it can form precipitates, aggregates, your hard cake formation. So yes, product appearance is going to get affected. Secondly is the drug stability. This is a controversial statement that I am making here, but yes, the drug stability, the drug can be prevented from the degradation, but yet in cases of these suspension and emulsions, it is difficult to maintain the stability also on other hand. Next is your resuspendability. As we have seen that the rate of sedimentation and your redispersibility, which means if there is no such cake formation, they can be redispersed, but in case of the deflocculated ones, there is a hard cake formation, so they are difficult to redisperse. Next is your bioavailability and your overall stability of the formulation. Right, so all of this are really dependent on your particle size and your particle size distribution. Okay students, so even if you get a higher particle size, suppose even if we are formulating a suspension and we get a higher particle size by any means, because there is a formation, while I have said it that yes, in case of biophysics systems, or even if you prepare the nano suspensions or nano emulsions, you can achieve a particle size that is exceptionally high. But yes, there are techniques which are used for reducing this particle sizes. So yes, there are mills, the colloidal mills, other mills that are available that can reduce your particle size. There is a homogenizer that is available for reducing the particle size. Homogenizer as in your, we can say your both high pressure homogenizer, also there is one high speed homogenizer also, right? Other than this, there are sonicators also. Ultrasonication techniques is there which can help you reduce the particle size. However, this is a highly topic of my interest of reducing the particle size. How can you measure the particle size? However, this is not very important from an exam point of view. I must say you should just know your basics about it. But when will you go into your higher classes, your masters, you'll get a good project, you might have to consider a lot about these techniques. This techniques of reducing particle size can consume a lot of time to optimize based on your formulation, based on what are your targets, what are your goals you are going to achieve with your formulation. So yes, please keep this topic in mind, that if you are in your pharma thing, if you are going for masters, if you will get the project, this things is going to stick by you for entire journey, right? So the particle size distribution, if you are working for the biophysics system or the nano suspensions, emulsions, the liposomal nanoparticles, you are going to face them for long time than you think. So the particle size can be reduced by mills, the homogenizers, the sonicators, and other extruders are also available, which can yes reduce your particle size. For knowing the particle size, there is one extra thing that I am going to tell you right now. This is not from your exam point of view, but can be the level that we are seeing right now. There are few things that you should, this is highly extra, but please know if you are working on the nano ranges anytime soon, or you can be asked this question. There are few parameters on which how you can see that your particle size has been achieved or not. One is your size only. The report that you get for your formulation is your Z average. That is that you have got suppose 160 nanometer particle. As per your US FDA, you must know as per the definition of nano, your one dimension should be like under the 100 nanometers, but it is still okay size, good size. Then other is your PDI. This is not your from your exam point of view, but because we are talking about these things, you should know this. There is one term called PDI, that is the polydispersibility index. Okay students, this polydispersity index you should know that this should be lower than 0.3. this should be, suppose you have your formulation right there, you are going to measure the particle size of it. The particle size is like 160, but the PDI is suppose 0.8. that is a real high PDI. That means that the formulation is not going to be stable, it is going to be precipitated like anytime soon. So one more question, if you're working on nano sizes, there are very much available instruments that can help you measure the particle size, like there is one zeta nano sizer. Okay, other than that there is one thing called zeta potential also. Now this term is highly related while you are looking for the stability of the formulation, right? This can range from like plus 30 millivolts to minus 30 millivolts. It indicates the stability of your suspension, emulsion, nano based particles. Please note it down, that zeta potential. You can be asked this question anytime. PDI is the polydispersity index. If you are going to check somebody for some formulations particle size, the PDI is 0.8. So is it a good formulation? No, it is not a good formulation. The PDI, polydispersity index, polydisperse. You want your formulation to be monodisperse. There should not be any other particle than your active pharmaceutical ingredient dispersed in your dispersion medium. There should not be any dust. There should not be any extra other particle. The particle size should be uniform. The particles, the formulation should look homogeneous. So the point, higher the PDI, the formulation is not going to be good. The zeta potential then explains about the stability. So even if you are interested to know more about the determination, how to look for the reports, how can you see about the graphs, that is purely not your GPAT point of view, but I can take a separate class of it. I can post about it. I can like show you some reports where you can check how these actually affect your stability. Even I am working on it, so I can very much show you about how to see if the suspension is not very stable, if it is not, the PDI is not good, how can you check the reports, how can you see the distribution from reports, how can you generate the idea of a good formulation or not. So sorry, coming back to our topic, we can discuss it. If you want, you can comment down, we can discuss it. Particle size, coming back to the topic, particle size, and the size distribution impact, have a real good impact on your formulation, and the particle size can be reduced using the techniques, the mills, the homogenizers, the sonicators, the extruders you can use for achieving a better stability. Okay students, so now these are some major consideration. Other than this, there is one more consideration that you should know, is the settling in case of suspensions. Second consideration that you should know is settling in case of suspension. Now I have talked about it a lot of times. This equation I have talked about a lot of times. If you will see my previous videos, you will be able to see this topic. Now settling in suspension is based on your Stokes law. Very, very important from your exam point of view. Mark it like really important from your exam point of view. Now this indicates that the rate of your sedimentation velocity is highly dependent on this equation. I am just writing it real quick. Okay, now this V is your sedimentation velocity of your suspended particles. Sedimentation velocity of your suspended particles. This D will be your diameter of the particle. Okay, this ρ1 will be the density of your particle. This ρ0 will be density of your liquid. Okay, and this eta will be your viscosity of the liquid. This equation has been asked so many times. In a lot of unit you will see this equation, so please mark it as important. Settling in suspension based is strictly based on your Stokes law. Okay students, so now one more property that you should know of. Just a second. So alright students, now we have seen about the settling in a suspension by the Stokes law that we have seen. Now we will be discussing about the degree of flocculation. Alright, so degree of first point that we considered was the particle size. The second that we considered was settling in suspension based on your Stokes law, and third one is your degree of sedimentation. Degree of sedimentation. Now the formula itself is degree of flocculation, not sedimentation, let me be correct, degree of flocculation. Now the formula itself suggests the formation of aggregates, that is the floccules. Degree of flocculation is represented by beta. Students, directly questions is asked, so kindly note down the formula, that is F upon FW. The F here is your sedimentation volume of flocculated suspension, while the FW is the sedimentation volume of your deflocculated suspension. Okay students, now this is very important. Direct questions are asked, so kindly note these topic down, the Stokes law and your degree of flocculation. Okay, other major topic to talk about today is your wetting and contact angle. Now yes, we have talked about this topic in your surface tension and interfacial phenomena, but we are going to discuss it today also, wetting and contact angle. As the name suggests, we had explained it with an example of a drop that makes an angle. So the contact angle is the angle between the liquid droplet and the surface over which it is going to spread. Now this is going to evaluate the efficiency of your wetting agent. The value of contact angle lies between 0 to 180 degrees. If the value is 180, it indicates non-wetting condition. Like the value should be greater than 90. If it's greater than 90, then it is like non-wetting condition. If it's around 90 or 0 will be the complete wetting, and less than 90 it is also considered wetting. Now if the value is 180 degree, it means non-wetting condition, that is the insignificant wetting that I have talked about. Another important question that has been favorite to ask is the Drave's test. Actually is the test for testing out the efficiency of your wetting agent. Students, directly questions are asked. Even if you now did not understand what does this contact angle means, it actually means how well or how poorly a liquid is going to spread over this surface, which indicates how a liquid interacts with the solid surface. So lower, one more point, that lower will be the contact angle, lower is the contact angle, higher will be your wettability, higher will be your wettability. Okay, now this wettability is nothing but the ability of the liquid to maintain contact with the solid surface. Kindly note it, wettability is the ability of the liquid to maintain contact with the solid surface. Now this contact angle has found to be inversely proportional to the wettability, inversely proportional to the wettability. If the contact angle is higher, there will be poor wettability. As I've mentioned, if it is around 180 degree, that it indicates a non-wettability conditions. Okay, if it is less than 90, if it is like 0 degree, that indicates your complete wettability, complete wetting conditions. Now another important, these are some really important points from your exam point of view. As I've mentioned one more point, that yes, the Draves test is used to measure the efficiency of your wetting agent. Students, direct questions will be asked, so do not skip these topics at all. Now, one more important topic for today's session is your electrical double layer phenomena. In the colloid section video, I have talked about this in the 𝙈 theory. I had mentioned that I'll be explaining the electrical double layer in the next class. So here it is your electrical double layer phenomena. It is highly simple, highly simple. You should just understand about the basics. We all know that the particles are dispersed into your dispersion medium, into your liquid medium. Now these particles, what happens, sometimes becomes charged. Okay, so I'll just write it down whatever I have said. I have said the particles that are dispersed in your liquid medium, the dispersed particles, they get charged. Okay, now this charge will influence the distribution of ions in the aqueous media surrounding the solid particles, your particles, due to which there will be a formation of double layer around the particle. Now what is this double layer means? Suppose your surface charge is negative. Suppose your surface charge is negative. If the surface charge is negative, to counterbalance this, the corresponding counter ions, that is your positive charge ions, will quickly come to deposit around it, right? This will form your first layer, that is known as the stern layer. I'll make the diagram which will make it even clear. Firstly, understand, I have mentioned that the particles in dispersed particles, however, get charged. Now this charge is going to influence the distribution of ions among the medium which surrounds your solid particle. Now if the surface charge of the particle is negative, corresponding counter ions are going to be around it. Suppose the positive charge, forming a first layer, that is your stern layer. Now the second layer of charge will be your diffuse layer. The second layer will be your diffuse layer. Okay, understand it with this diagram. Suppose this is your particle surface. Suppose this is your particle surface with the charge. Now because of this, positive counter ions have come up, forming our first layer, that is known as a stern layer. Okay, now surrounding to it is the diffuse bulk layer. Okay students, forming this double layer. Very simple phenomena to understand, that is in your bulk. Okay, so this is your electrical double layer phenomena. Okay students, now last but not the least, we have another major small topic to talk about before we are going to get into our MCQs thing, is your sedimentation volume. Sedimentation volume. As the name suggests, sedimentation volume is the ratio of the ultimate volume to the initial volume of total suspension. It is the ratio of ultimate volume to the initial volume of the total suspension. Okay students, so which indicates that the larger is this fraction, will indicate a better suspendability, Okay students, so these are some major topics in your suspension that we have included today. We have talked about the wetting angle, the contact angle, the particle size, degree of flocculation, flocculating agent, deflocculating agent, sedimentation volume, the double layer phenomena. These topics are highly important from your exam point of view. So I hope you had a great time learning with it. Now coming to our questions for the today. Alright. The first question, these questions have been asked directly in your exams, or these are some model questions that you should prepare from this topic. The sedimentation of the particles in the suspension can be minimized by, I'll give you 10 seconds to see the question and write down in the comments before I'm going to reveal the answer. The first option is that increasing the particle size of the active ingredient, or maybe reducing the size of the particle size, or increasing the viscosity of the suspension. So the sedimentation of the particles in a suspension can be minimized by, actually I have told you, if you will increase the particle size, what will happen? The stability will reduce. So this is not your right option. The correct option will be B and C, by reducing the particle size majorly of your active ingredient, or by increasing your viscosity. Alright students, I hope you got the answer. Now to our next question. I have told you that some questions will be asked very directly. So the ratio of the ultimate height of the sediment to the initial height of your total suspension settling in a cylinder under standard conditions, this is known as the degree of what? Kindly quickly write it. Is it the degree of emulsification? Is it the degree of flocculation? Is it the degree of deflocculation? Or is it the degree of sedimentation? I hope you got the correct answer. It is the degree of flocculation. Okay students, I hope you all have got the answer. Now, the rate of sedimentation of a flocculated suspension. This is an important topic. You have seen the difference in the flocculated suspension and the deflocculated ones. I'll be once again showing you that slide we have talked about. Yes, so you can see here, you should get the answer now. In case of the flocculated ones, the rate of sedimentation is high as compared to your non-flocculated ones. So that calls for our easy answer here, that yes, in case of the flocculated ones, the rate of suspension is higher. Okay students, these are some direct questions, right? Which of the properties of a non-flocculated suspensions? You can see again the question is on that table, so you might be able to answer this question. The sedimentation is difficult to redisperse, but I have told you that in case of non-flocculated ones, there is a formation of hard cake which is difficult to get redispersed. So the option 1 is a big no-no for us. due to which the option D turns out to be no. The correct answer to this question is yes, the rate of sedimentation is low. We have just seen the rate of sedimentation is high in case of the flocculated ones. So the rate of suspension is low in case of the non-flocculated or the deflocculated ones. So this is all about your topic for today. I hope you had a really great time enjoying this lecture. Other than that, you can just give out your suggestions. I'm very open to the reviews or any other questions you would like to ask. Before next topic that we'll be covering is the emulsions. These are some highly easy yet very typical topics that you can cover for your exam point of view. These topics are included in your dispensing pharmacy also and your physical pharmacy also. So I hope you have got an idea of from where the questions are generally asked. So thank you so much for this session. We will surely meet in the upcoming classes. Thank you.